Again, we're playing fast and loose with stuff, but I thought it was funny. I'm not averse to laughing a little bit. See, I'm not completely soulless. It looks like we're finally watching Strange New Worlds. That's right. We're returning back to TOS. We're treading on hallowed ground here. You play with TOS, you're playing with fire. This is not the first time this has happened. We've seen it with Enterprise in a few instances, not to get sidetracked. And of course, we've seen it with Discovery Season 1 and 2. However, this time we're diving in head deep. If there's one word I could use to describe Strange New Worlds, it is precarious. Okay? It is obvious that we are billing this as a TOS show in both design, tone, and sound. However, we're also trying to nudge people away from some elements of TOS canon. Are we trying to create a new TOS? It's possible that if this show continues on, we may actually be treading upon TOS literally, as in remaking each episode. My mind's eye can see it coming. I won't be necessarily happy about it, but that being said, this is vastly superior to Discovery, vastly superior to Picard so far. I would argue this episode is not quite as nice as the first episode of Picard Season 2. You know what happened with the rest of that season. But Strange New Worlds is a good foot forward, but we have a lot of nagging problems. A lot of problems I'm willing to overlook for this first episode. This episode is littered with begrudging callbacks to Discovery. A lot of them necessary. If you're trying to build this show as taking place directly after Discovery, which it is, that being Season 2, you can't totally ignore the events of Season 2, can you? You have to have a narrative through line for people who are not so immersed in Star Trek so that they can start with Discovery and then get to this point. I understand that. It has to, like I said, begrudgingly acknowledge Discovery. While references to Discovery pop up here and there is a Discovery reference that ties directly into the plot of this episode, which I was not happy with. And we'll get to that in a moment. Like I said, I can overlook a lot of stuff for the first episode, right? Because right out of the gate, we're playing catch up and we're cleaning up. Okay, we're cleaning house. I get it. With that out of the way, as a disclaimer, let's get into the episode. One more thing. I feel this is as good a time as any to discuss the intro. The intro is very obviously trying to be in the vein of TOS. We're trying to show a ship doing something with fun music in the background. We're not reinventing the wheel like we have been with a few past intros to these shows. Nor are we really putting together an extremely beautiful intro. This intro suffers from egregious post-processing. If you don't know what that is, think of it as something that you do to simulate a camera lens effect on what would otherwise be a clear image. Producing a blurry and dark, grimy image to me, I'm not a fan of it. Yes, pound for pound, it looks realistic. But pure realism isn't everything. I'd like it if the ships were lit a little bit better by whatever the nearest sun is, whatever the nearest light source is. Perhaps break canon a bit more and maybe Do some self-illumination more? Maybe make it a little brighter? I don't know. For me, this intro was just ho-hum. I like the sentiment. I like what they're going for. But musically, it just gets lost. I mean, they have the TOS theme, and they couldn't properly expand upon it. They couldn't take the TOS theme to the next level. They took the TOS theme and instead buried it in a whole universe of other instruments and sounds so that you couldn't really parse it out. So overall, I'm negative on the intro. I'm sorry. It's fun looking at the ship fly around, but we could have did so much more. We could have had more punch, more power, but we just got kind of a middle of the road intro. It gets the job done, and it lacks the nasty pretentiousness of the Discovery and Picard intros that I'm not really fond of. My favorite intro so far is probably Prodigy, with Lower Decks trailing close behind, then Discovery, then Picard, and now this one fits in better than Picard, better than Discovery, but not quite as good as Lower Decks or Prodigy. So there you have it for the intro. Enterprise looks okay. It's got that Discovery smell, you know, the gray, dark look to everything. It's totally at odds with the interior. The interior is bright and happy. The outside's dark and spooky. Maybe you like it, but it's not really for me. Moving on. What actually goes on in this episode? This episode opens on Earth with our retired, seemingly, Captain Pike. And because this is Kurtzman Trek, technically this is the same old... The usual suspects, we'll call them. This is the usual suspects making the show, make no mistake. Because of that, Pike is tired. He's old, perhaps bitter, doesn't want to be in Starfleet. You can see on the television he's watching that TV show or movie. I don't know what it was. It was about some kind of alien invasion or something. What was it called? The Day the Earth Stood Still, I think. Very meta to be playing a movie that came out not so far removed from the days of TOS. Your mileage may vary, as I am wont to say, but I feel Trek is best when we imagine that its future diverged from our future in the 60s. Right? I like the future that was created originally. A clean break timeline, as it were. Now, we've gone back on that a few times with First Contact and kind of rearranged what happened with World War III, as we are going to do again in this episode. But I don't know how I feel about watching movies or TV shows from that era inside Star Trek. It's a little meta. If you look at the content of the movie, it's about a first contact between aliens and humans. That's what happens in this episode. So it's a little bit cute. It's like watching a cartoon and then seeing kids in that cartoon watch a cartoon on their television, and the show they're watching is a lot more hokey and fake than the reality that the cartoon takes place in. Similarly here, this is an episode positing a realistic view of First Contact, and they're watching a theatrical view of First Contact in a movie in this television show. Although I would offer that this episode of Star Trek is a little hokey, which is not really a bad thing. Hokey is better than bleak. I don't think I'm alone in that. Another Starfleet officer wakes up in Pike's bed. They have breakfast. Are you going to answer that phone? They say phone. His communicator's chirping. They need Pike. He neglects to answer. And he is met with a Starfleet shuttle. Flies very close to his horse, by the way. He's riding around on a horse in the wintertime. In the background, there's windmills, creating a very interesting view. It's an interesting shot, but I question the necessity of a windmill in 2259, whenever this takes place. Do we still need that? I don't know. But it was a cool shot. I admit I liked seeing the horse running around in the snow with windmills flying around and a shuttle landing. Very cool looking shuttle. Decidedly not TOS, but cool looking. It's an improvement over the Discovery shuttle, I'll say that. The shuttle flies very close to his horse. I'm glad he didn't get killed. But who comes off the shuttle? But it's Robert April, the captain of the Enterprise before Pike, who doesn't have an English accent now. It was my perception of him, admittedly from non-canon sources. The animated series was not canon. That included Robert April. And I've read a few books that included Robert April as a character, and they would usually give him an English accent. And this time he didn't have it, so I was a little bit off-put. Also, he has had a visual change. He is black now. That's fine. That didn't really bother me at all. But the voice, I really wanted the accent. I think it's just such a. It's like a unique touchstone to that character, even if it's not canon. I just thought it was cool, and it would be fun to honor that, but we didn't get it, so, whatever. He walks off the shuttle, and I just think that shot looks awful. The CGI, the way the CGI matches onto the background, it doesn't look right to me. It looks cheap. I didn't believe for a minute that shuttle landed on the snow. Now, everybody laugh at me when it turns out behind-the-scenes photos reveal that the shuttle was a physical model. Whoops. I can't help it that the final product looked bad. It just did. Listen, Pike. We just lost some people in a first contact mission. Would you help us? What's that got to do with me? Oh, well, one of them was your former first officer, Una. Number 1. First contact mission went bad, and we haven't heard from them in a while. So what happens? Pike ends up back on the Enterprise. A shuttle flies up to the Enterprise, and mysteriously he beams from the shuttle to the Enterprise. No explanation given as for why. I tried to rationalize it in my head as maybe the shuttle bay is full. Maybe. I mean, they're in dry dock and they're doing an overhaul, and maybe shuttle bay is just full of stuff and they couldn't land it. I don't know, but they do transport in from the shuttle. And the Enterprise, I mean, these sets that they're on are enormous. I saw engineering. It's beautiful, but it's enormous. If you look at how high the ceiling is, I have never seen a chamber that big inside a secondary hull in my life. This thing must take up a whole cross-section of the secondary hull. I don't know what they were getting at with that, but I appreciate that it doesn't look like a brewery as it did in Star Trek 2009. So I'll take my victories where I can get them. But we're meeting our crew. Obviously, there's Laan Noonien-Singh. Don't worry about the last name, guys. But this character is straight-laced, angry, and has the backstory you would expect. We have an angry character. What's their backstory? Can you guess? That's right. They're another lone survivor of something. I've never heard of that before, but this character is a lone survivor of some Gorn incursion into the space they were living in. I don't know, but she's a lone survivor of some Gorn. I think they call it a nursery or something. I don't know. But she was set free for some ritualistic reason. She survived, and she was saved by Una in the past. Now that that's out of the way, we have Ortegas, Uhura, Spock, obviously, who was seen earlier on Vulcan meeting an adult T'Pring. Okay, this is why I'm thinking we're just remaking TOS now, because this is impossible. If you watch TOS, you will know that Vulcans have preordained marriages that they cannot really change. What that means is that your marriage is set up for you before you have any choice to make in the matter, okay? He was to marry T'Pring for years, okay? And in TOS, the last time Spock saw T'Pring, she was little. She was like 7 or something. Just a little kid, right? So, now we're meant to believe that T'Pring has met Spock when they were both adults, and T'Pring proposes to Spock in this episode. So, from whence comes Spock looking at a young picture of T'Pring? I don't know. It kind of walks all over that particular episode of TOS. No spoilers for TOS, but you should definitely watch it. I believe it was the first episode of Season 2. Maybe I'm wrong. Not that it matters. The fact of the matter is, we're walking on TOS. Egregious, a little bit disturbing, but mostly pointless. Was there any reason to have this subplot with T'Pring? Was there any reason to walk on TOS like that? Could we have had Spock engaging in something else on Vulcan? Dig into the expanded lore around Star Trek. Perhaps there's some other ritual that goes on Vulcan that he was just engaged with, Or just make something up. Maybe get creative, but not too creative. So we've seen adult T'Pring. Events of TOS are now becoming impossible. Never mind the fact that Picard went on board the TOS Enterprise in the holodeck in the episode Relics, and then later on in Star Trek Picard looks at a holographic display of the new Enterprise from Discovery Season 2, telling us that Picard's memory is either wrong and he's crazy, or we are in two timelines. You decide. So, Spock's back. The gang's all here, apart from the characters we need to rescue on this planet. This planet is called Kylie, and there's some number designation after it. I can't remember. It's not important. But we detected, or the ship that Una was on, I believe it was called the Archer, a one-nacelle ship, who, by the way, only had three crew members. You can operate these ships with 3 crew members? Doubt. I'm going with doubt on that one. But because the episode needed it, we only needed to rescue 3 people. So that ship that we're going after from the failed first contact had 3 people on it. Okay? What happens? The planet's firing on us. They're firing on the UFO, which is us. They did not build a warp drive like we thought, which had initiated the original first contact. It turns out they had built a warp bomb. What that entails, I don't know. Why Starfleet couldn't tell the difference between that and a warp drive, I don't know. But they end up down the surface. They infiltrate using temporary genetic enhancements that actually cause their heads to undergo metamorphosis so that they turn into a rubber forehead alien of the week from Star Trek. Very funny. Not out of their own possibility. We've seen it before, although I question the need for it if prosthetic technology has advanced so far. Maybe it would have been better not to go with it, However, it proves necessary because we need to go through a retinal scan. Perhaps it would be difficult to change your eyeball as a prosthetic. Nurse Chapel gives them injections. We're going to genetically alter you to be like them. We also meet Dr. Mbenga, who was in the cage. I think? No, that was Dr. Boyce. Dr. Mbenga was from TOS. So where's Dr. Boyce? Maybe we'll meet him later. We go down to the planet. Why is it always an alley? Ha ha ha. We transport down. We look like the aliens. And they're in the middle of some kind of civil war. The details are scarce. But they're looking at a view screen with some kind of news update. And I couldn't help but notice that this video looks decidedly like Earth. In fact, I thought I saw an ancient Earth flag. Very, very odd. I don't know why they did that. I mean, did they think I wouldn't recognize flags of my own world? And they also had, in this same episode, protesters and people running around with alien-looking signs. Why couldn't, if they already had all those extras, why didn't they just get a video of them? I don't know. I think maybe they wanted the effect to be so good and to look so real that they use something that actually really happened. At the risk of taking you out of it, it's not a big deal. We know what we know, and what we know about the planet is that it's undergoing some type of massive, potentially civilization-ending unrest, and the warp bomb is an outgrowth of that. Again, I'm not sure what the warp bomb is, or what it entails, or how it was built. We need to go down, deep down underground, into what is essentially this planet's Area 51. Very funny, haha. We sneak down there with our admittedly bad-looking disguises on behalf of Spock, because Spock's DNA has caused these temporary genetic changes to start failing. So we have to run down there very fast, but not before we need to go through a retinal scanner. And the Enterprise crew amazingly beams a salve onto the surface of Spock's eye as he's looking at the retinal scanner to fool the retinal scanner. Doubt. That's doubt number 2. Okay, we're getting some doubts here. We're getting far-fetchy. So we go down underground. And we've kept the Starfleet crew, 3 people from this ship, down in this tiny cellar for some unknown reason. And then we get the bombshell. Una says that we gave them this technology. What? How does that make sense? Guess what? The people on Kylie, this planet, used telescopes to see an event that took place about 100 light years away or so, or less than, I forget what they said, which was the Discovery going back in time from season 2 of Star Trek Discovery. And they used data from the telescope, perhaps spectrographs, whatever kind of technology they have, but they did a long distance reverse engineering of what happened to design their own warp technology. So, in our reality, the event that happened at the end of Discovery, Season 2, took place, like a year ago? 2 years ago? But this civilization, disregarding the speed of light, has detected this and successfully reverse engineered the technology involved in that situation in a few years. It didn't exactly happen in orbit of this planet. It was light years away. And I would think it takes longer than a few years to figure that out, if you can figure it out at all. Because the implication is, if it's possible to reverse engineer a warp drive out of a telescopic view of starships doing anything, that means we've accidentally contaminated millions of worlds. That's what that means. Again, terrible implications. Bad writing with unforeseen consequences, we'll say. Maybe you should have did a rewrite on that. Maybe they should have shot down the Archer and then stole the technology out of it somehow. I don't know how. That's far-fetched as well. Again, key words here. Precarious. Far-fetched. Doubt. So, we just accept it, and we beam all of our characters away back to the Enterprise, save for Spock and Pike. What are we going to do without breaking General Order 1? Screw General Order 1. Par for the course with Star Trek, if we're honest with ourselves. I don't like it either, but it happens a lot in Star Trek. General Order 1 is important. Oh wait, no, it's not now. Because of reasons. We have a debate with one of the political leaders of this world. They even say the line, "Take me to your leader." Begging the question, how come Una didn't do that? Why did it not work for Una? This crew was captured before the Enterprise was, and just because Pike showed up, he can now request an audience with their political leader, and they'll just let him? Doubt. However, he does have an audience with his political leader. He uses many metaphorical references to Earth stuff that you cannot possibly understand, and he loses. What good is a rule if you're not willing to die for it or break it? You said yourself, the person with the biggest stick wins, and in that case, this is me. An interesting line, poignant, interesting, charismatic. However, we are using the Enterprise as a big stick. We're calling it a weapon, and we're saying, guess what? We're stronger than you, so you better listen. Enterprise, come down low, full visibility, show them what you got. And the Enterprise comes down. It is clearly inside the atmosphere, by the way. It's in atmospheric flight mode, that's all I can tell you. It's happened before, but that doesn't mean I have to like it. The Enterprise is there. Oh my gosh, the aliens are here. And they're showing us a video of what happened on their planet in what was once Second Civil War, and then Eugenics War, and then we just called it World War III, so we're merging all those times together. 90s to like the end of like 2030, perhaps all the way up to 2060. It's vague. Maybe I like to keep it vague on purpose. Let's leave it at that. But we just believe their story? The aliens of Kylie just believe, on face value, the story that Pike delivers them, which is admittedly gripping. It's admittedly well delivered, but I couldn't shake the feeling that their wars are not yet over. Wars don't end that easily, in my experience, and planets don't enter the Federation that easily either, although they seem to in Discovery, and now this show. Entering into the United Federation of Planets used to be something that took tens of years. A lot of paperwork, a lot of dialogue, a lot of fighting. But it gets done, usually for the better. Not everyone agrees, but if we're honest with ourselves, it's something we endeavor upon for good reasons, I think, but our way is not the way, obviously, for all alien species. Just ask the Maquis. Not to go back on Voyager that much, or indeed Picard and 7 of 9 not being allowed in the Starfleet. As you can tell, my brain is still being rattled after having watched Picard, and perhaps I cannot fully make room for this new show in my mind. This show was a breath of fresh air, I will say that. It felt different, it felt new, and it also felt old. We resolved our plot, but we get to have our nice little speech at the end, just like we did in TOS. What did we learn, kids, today in school? Well, Lan says, I should have trusted you guys. I should have told you guys about my past, but I was scared you wouldn't trust me. She says this to Pike. I was scared you wouldn't trust me and allow me to go on this mission. And then Pike says, so instead, you chose not to trust me. Great line. I will say that Pike delivered in this episode. He was a captain who respects your personal space, knows when to give you a pep talk, and knows exactly when to make his presence known, physically or otherwise. He's charismatic, and he knows how to take a light touch approach to a problem. He's a great example of a captain, so far. We'll see if they ruin it. They certainly tried to in Discovery, but now maybe he has room to breathe, just as we do. Our episode ends with gathering our crew. We got Una back. We got Uhura on deck. Hemmer beams aboard. All the characters we're going to have as mainstays for this season, I suppose. But there's one more thing. Kirk beams aboard, and he's coming up to the bridge to meet Pike. Hello, Samuel Kirk. That got a chuckle out of me. It did. Samuel Kirk. They name dropped just Kirk a few moments ago in this episode, and then when he comes up, it's Sam Kirk. You know, the Kirk's brother. Not gonna spoil TOS, but he has a mustache, and it's just funny. He's in life sciences, and I think he report to your new boss. There's Spock. You reported to him. Haha. Again, we're playing fast and loose with stuff, but I thought it was funny. I'm not averse to laughing a little bit. See, I'm not completely soulless. Musically, TOS score shows up here and there. Visually, a big improvement. But the uniforms are not all they could be. And the graphics of the CGI elements are not all they could be. It looks decidedly more expensive than Discovery and Picard, I'll say that much. Philosophically, I thought it had a good message, a very generalized, if not hokey message about friendship, getting over your differences, and coming together in the spirit of negotiation and peace building. I thought it had a very good message that I think everybody can accept. Again, it feels like something for kids. I mean, good Trek is for everybody, but this feels like a little bit. It's a little bit bland, and it's a little bit lacking on details as for what happened on this planet later. It's saccharine, right? And I'll take that any day over Discovery or Picard. Any day I'll take it. A few good speeches here and there that I didn't feel like skipping. Not all of it hits. Spock's dialogue is not always the quality we should expect from Spock. I'll leave it at that. Your mileage may vary. Some people like this Spock, some people don't. A lot of people seem to like this Pike, probably owing to the fact that we've never seen a lot of Pike before this. We had what appeared in Kelvin timeline and what we had in the Cage, and a menagerie, I guess, not to get too in the weeds about TOS. So, our characters that we don't know a lot about have room to develop. Is Spock going to take a back seat? Are we going to play it safe with Spock? Probably not, if T'Pring showing up is to be believed. The standout problem, T'Pring, the three people on the Archer, the footage from what was clearly from Earth being displayed in an alien context. Far-fetched, stuff that I doubt, stuff that was fun, a few laugh out loud moments for me. Overall, a joyous tone. Are we setting the stage for something great, or are we going to keep getting nagged by the looming threat, the shadowy specter of Discovery, as we did a few times in this episode? Pike looks around, remembers that, holy crap, I know that I'm going to die. He has visions of himself in that wheelchair thing, taking note of the moment, not really in critical situations as we saw with Picard, last season with Picard, but enough to make you bat an eye. He also does point out to the whole crew that, in a shipwide message, I know my future. Don't say that. You might get relieved of duty. That's kind of a big psychological bombshell. To know your own future. Scary to know when you're going to die. Also scary to know that all of a sudden the concept of fate means something in Star Trek. You know you're going to die. Spock should say, fantastic! That means you can do anything you want now. Now you can't die until then. The elephant in the room. Knowing your fate is a fantastic thing for a captain. Now I can't die. Although, I don't believe in fate, because obviously that doesn't make sense. A leftover from Discovery, we'll say. Hopefully, this is the last we'll see of it. And like I said, if Discovery keeps sneaking back in, I'm not going to like it. And if we keep stepping on TOS much more, I'm not going to like it. But I'm willing to forgive this episode, being the first one out of the gate, playing cleanup. I'm going to have to give it a solid 6. It's fun. I watched it twice without too much trouble. I didn't have to skip around too much to get over some bad dialogue. We'll see what happens. I'm not happy about the canon violations, but if the show turns out really good, I'll be willing to overlook a few things. I'm not a complete stick in the mud. So there's Strange New Worlds. Here's looking forward to the next episode when it comes out next week. I know this review is a little bit late. My comment response video ended up taking longer than I thought, but we're going to be back on track very shortly. And I can't wait to be diving into Strange New Worlds every week. If this episode was to be believed, we've got something a little bit fresh in our hands. The usual suspects are behind it, but let's hope for the best, expecting inevitably that we may end up with the worst. I'm Mark, and I'll see you guys next time.